Welcome everyone to the start of my series called All You Need. In this series I'm going to break down and talk about the topic of choice for the video, its stats and numbers. We'll go over the uses for it, what it's good at, what it's bad at, and at the end I'll share my personal thoughts about how it handles an action and how it stacks up against the three factions. Today's topic is going to be the ARC-3 Arc Thrower. And with that being said, let's get started. ARC-3 Arc Thrower is an early game support weapon, unlocked at level 15, costing 7,000 rec points. Unlike traditional firearms, the Arc Thrower doesn't rely on bullets or magazines. Instead, it fires concentrated bolts of high voltage electricity, powerful enough to melt armor and chain between multiple targets. Under normal conditions, it deals 250 electrical damage, can reach targets up to 55 meters away, but its most defining features are its chain and stun effects. When the Arc Thrower hits its primary target, excess energy can jump into additional enemies nearby. That means one well-placed shot can damage multiple enemies at once. Unlike ballistic weapons, the Arc Thrower doesn't need to reload. Internal battery will never run out of ammo. However, there is a short charge-up period between each shot. The Arc Thrower is exceptional at crowd control. Swarms of light enemies, whether they're bugs or bots, are especially vulnerable because the chain effect multiplies your damage output. In chaotic fights, this often turns the Arc Thrower into a lane clearer, deleting small groups before they become a threat. Its ability to stun and stagger targets adds an extra layer of utility. A well-timed shot can interrupt a charging bug, cancel a bot attack, or buy critical seconds for you and your fellow divers. And because the weapon has no ammo restrictions, it thrives in extended engagements. Where other support weapons may run dry, the Arc Thrower provides you with longevity in the field. But the Arc Thrower is not without its drawbacks. First, the chain lightning is unpredictable. It follows the path of least resistance, which means terrain, debris, or even corpses can block or divert your shot. Having a clear line of sight makes all the difference with this. Second, and most notoriously, is friendly fire. The Arc Thrower does not discriminate. If a teammate stands too close to your target, they are in danger of getting hit with your shot. In tight environments, one careless bolt can wipe out your whole squad. The weapon also struggles with precision, so it's important to handle it with care when your teammates are nearby. Heavier enemies can be damaged. The Arc Thrower, like other arc weapons, lacks an armor penetration stat. This is because arc weapons have the ability to bypass the armor stat of its targets, which means it's possible to take down heavy enemies. However, it doesn't do it quick. The Arc Thrower is most effective when you control the engagement area. Open terrain, clear sight lines, and enemy clusters maximize the chain potential. When using the Arc Thrower, do your best to position yourself slightly elevated or off angle to avoid obstacles that may interfere with your shot. Communication is critical. Let your squad know when you're firing, and avoid shooting into tightly packed friendly positions. In high pressure situations, its stun potential is critical. Interrupt charging enemies, disable heavies long enough for your squad to take advantage, or create breathing room during extraction. The Arc Thrower's strength is its battlefield control with light enemies. The Arc-3 shines in the hands of players who value tactical play, timing, and situational awareness. If you enjoy controlling crowds, supporting your squad, and managing a high-risk, high-reward weapon, the Arc Thrower is one of the most satisfying tools if you're able to use it effectively, especially early on. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. In my personal opinion, the Arc Thrower is a bit of a wildcard weapon. The chain effect can be pretty unpredictable. If you have a squad, it can immediately put them at risk when you're using it. I personally have had times where a squad mate is standing behind me and the chain still wraps around and hits them. The Arc Thrower does have its uses though. Because of its infinite ammo and its stun effect, it makes it handy for planets that have the Ion Storm modifier, because you can rely on it if you can't call a resupply. Or if you find one on the ground somewhere, if you're without your regular equipment, it can certainly make ends meet until you've gathered your gear, or you're able to call it back in. Now we'll put it up against three factions and see how it does. Up against the bugs, the Arc Thrower is useful up until about level 6. The chain action is effective against the bugs due to the large amount of light enemies. However, it doesn't take much to overwhelm that effect. From my experience, the chain effect can only hit up to 4 to 5 enemies at once. When you're surrounded by a group of 30 bugs, that can get pretty heated pretty quick. That second long charge up between shots starts to feel real long. For lower level missions, it can hold its own if it's necessary. However, there are many other options that, in my opinion, are just better at dealing with bugs, when it comes to support weapons especially. I'd give the Arc Thrower probably about a 4 out of 10 against the bugs. It's not horrible, but if I had another option, I'd probably take it. Up against the bots, the Arc Thrower starts to shine a bit more on lower level missions. The usually lower number of enemies on the bot front makes it more manageable with the chain and stun effect. Instead of having a group of 25 to 30 bugs to deal with, having a group of 10 to 15 bots can seem a bit more manageable, even if they've got more health and more armor. The stun effect is also quite effective against Devastators. If you're able to land a shot on a shield or rocket Devastator and stun them, that gives you a nice opening to land a couple shots to deal with it. Although it can damage targets like Hulks, I wouldn't recommend it due to just how long it would take to take it down. On the bot front, I'd give it probably a 5 out of 10. Better than the bugs, but pretty similar if I'm honest. There are just other options that are a lot better at handling them. But in a pinch, you can make it work. The squid front is where I think the arc thrower doesn't get enough credit. If you've played on higher level squid missions, you've probably encountered the elevated overseers. Yeah, the jetpack guys that just float over top of you and you never leave you alone. Yeah, those guys. The arc thrower is great at dealing with them because the stun effect will prevent them from moving in the air for a few moments, which makes it way easier to land your shots. It's also handy against the voteless horde. This is where the chain effect shines against the squids. Having that chain and stun effect hit multiple enemies at once while you're trying to run a train like you're back in COD Zombies can make it a bit easier to deal with the horde. The arc thrower is also handy for stunning harvesters, if you're able to get close enough to them without getting fried. On the squids, I'd probably give it about a 7 out of 10 for lower missions. There are still better options, but that I think will always outshine the arc thrower, unfortunately. But for an early game weapon, it can do pretty well. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you have a request for the next stratagem for me to do in the next video, let me know down in the comments. Check out my Instagram and TikToks for any other shorts or edits I make. I'll link them down in the description, as well as my Twitch if you want to watch me and the guys dive in real time. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.